Hello and welcome back to this video series on the Chocolatey for Business Quick Deployment Environment, or QDE. Now, if my voice hasn't tipped you off already, I'm decidedly not Gaddy. I am Adil from Chocolatey, and I'll be walking you through how to set up QDE on VMware ESX in this video. Let's get started, shall we? Now, just to set the scene for you, I'm currently on VMware ESXi version 6.5.0, update 3 to be exact, and I've gone ahead and downloaded and extracted the VMDK image from the link provided by the Chocolatey team. And I've gone ahead and placed that VMDK. I've uploaded it into my data store in the VM folder here as QDE VMDK. So that's great. I'm ready to start creating this machine. So let's go in here and let's do this together. So first of all, we select Create Register VM, and we select Create a New Virtual Machine. Click Next. We're going to give this machine a name of Choco Server. Under compatibility, we leave that. Under Guest OS family, we can select Windows. Under Guest OS version, we're going to want to pick as close as we can to Windows Server 2019, because that's the image here. So I'm going to go Windows Server 2016 or later in this example, but you can go ahead and go as close as you can to 2019. We're going to click Next. We're going to leave the data store setting alone because we don't really need to worry about it because we're going to be changing the disk anyway. And in here, we can start configuring some of these hardware settings. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and set the CPU to the minimum requirement, which is 4 CPUs. And I'm going to set my memory to 8192, as in 8 gigabytes of RAM. And this hard disk, you can see that VMware ESX has gone ahead and helpfully added a disk for us, but we already have one in our QDE VMDK. So we can go ahead and click the X here to delete that disk out, and we're going to go into the Add Hard Disk menu. We're going to go ahead and add an existing hard disk. And in my image folder, I have that VM directory here, and there's my QDE VMDK. I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now, a very important point of note here, we specifically need to provide a controller that is appropriate to this disk type. Now, because this is a legacy disk, for compatibility reasons, we have to choose the IDE controller specifically. Now, if you missed this step and you leave it as a SCSI controller in ESX, then this VMDK will not work and your VM will not boot properly. So it's very important to set your controller location here to IDE controller. So that's great. In addition, we do want to expand this disk, but we can't do it in this menu right here. So we're going to go ahead and click Next and Finish. And now when we go back and our Choco server is created here, we can go back and edit the settings and change that. So over here, I'm going to go back and set this to 100 gigs. It should be a minimum of 100 gigs is what we recommend. Generally, you can go larger than that, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. So now let's summarize. We've created our Choco server VM, we've attached our QDE VMDK disk and expanded it to 100 gigabytes. We've also configured our VM with 4 virtual CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM as recommended. Now we can go ahead and power on our Choco server VM and finish the last few steps of setup. So I'm going to go ahead and click Power On here, and then just pop out this VM and wait for it to boot. And now that the VM's been booted, I'm going to go ahead and send the Control-Alt-Delete key to go ahead and log into the VM. Now, this temporary password for the administrator account will have been included in the same email where you got the link to download the QDE image. I'm going to go ahead and type in this temporary password here, if I can remember it, and the user's password now must be changed before sign in. So that was a temporary password. We're going to go ahead and enter a new password that matches the complexity requirements required by Windows Server. I'm going to go ahead and enter that password again to confirm. I'm going to click the little arrow, and we should be into our VM here. Excellent. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is check the disk size on this VM, because as you know, we expanded the disk in VMware, but that did not necessarily extend it in the OS. So you'll see the C drive is only set to the 30 gigs that we originally had it configured to. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and extend this volume. And go ahead and accept the defaults, and now you can see I have almost the full 100 gigabytes. It's important to remember that when we expand the disk in terms of virtual hardware at the hypervisor level, we still have to remember to extend the volume at the operating system level. If we don't extend the volume in the OS, applications that require that space like Nexus will likely report failures. So let's just double check that here. We can see we have the full 100 gigs there, which is awesome. Now in order to make our lives easier, I'm going to go ahead and right click the start menu, go to the system menu here, and I'm going to pick turn on remote desktop. And I'm going to do this because it'll make it a lot easier for us to copy and paste files like license files right into this VN if we can go in via RDP. So I've turned that on now. The one last step I have to do is go ahead and install VMware tools to make this a little bit easier to manage. And that should insert the VMware tools CD media into there, and it has. And I think I just clicked it too quickly. So if I go back to this PC, I double click, this should run the VMware tools installation. And when this is done, I'm just going to click reboot, and I am done with the configuration and setup phase of QDE. And there you have it. The setup is complete, and I'll go ahead and click yes to restart this machine. And now that the VM's been rebooted, we can move on to the next steps of exploring QDE further.